Welcome to the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into the right analysis so that you can create the right policy. In this episode, we're going to talk about the case study of Guyana, and that economy is expected to boom next year. So how do you find data about this economy? Imagine you have only 25 minutes to gather all the data that you can find about an economy, and in this case it's Guyana. How are you going to get that done? If you are interested in getting the data, in being the first one to know everything about the Guyana economy because it's going to boom next year, then this episode is for you, because I'm going to show you exactly some of my secrets, not all of them, some of my secrets to gather data. What kind of data do I get? What kind of data am I looking at? And how can you get this data? Stay with me in this episode. Hi, my name is Rooney Calmera, and as you know, every Friday I bring you the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we talk about data. We don't only BS in this show. We talk about the data, about actual figures, and we base our analysis on this data. And we also create the right policy. The policy can be a private policy, like what is the best place to invest, where is the best place to put your money. Thank you very much for being here. And in this case, the policy can also be a policy for policymakers, growing the economy, investing, strategies, etc. So we put all the data somewhere, and we take action based on data. So my name is Rooney Calmera. This is the first time here. There are many episodes, and every episode we talk about data. And in this case, in this episode I broadened my scope a little bit. It's not only small island economies, but let's look at an economy in the Caribbean region and how do we get that data. So what is my goal? My goal is to show you how I approach every country, island that I'm working on. As you know, I have already created 10 economic models, and an economic model is nothing more than all the data structured, the relevant data structured, and you can play with that data, you can simulate the economy, and you can base policy. You can create the analysis based on that economic model. I've created economic models for all the 8 Eastern Caribbean islands and the 2 Dutch Caribbean islands, Curaçao, where I'm living, and St. Martin. And I can show you what you can do with that model, but let me just show you my screen and come back. I will show you my screen so that you can know I'm here. I'm here below, and I'm just showing you my screen here, the spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, you see basically an economic model of Curaçao. And this is where we want to get. Ultimately, we will not get here within 25 minutes, but this is the goal. The goal is to have an economic model which is all structured, an economic model with a fiscal sector. You see here the economic model with a real sector, the economic model with the external sector, the monetary sector, household sector, etc. And what can you do with this model? You can have graphs. So once you have the economic model, you can have graphs with indicators. Let me show you just one graph here, one dashboard. You can get dashboard inflation, you can get dashboard about the economy, you can get a dashboard about unemployment, analyze the economy. So imagine you want to get this economic model and you want to play that. Why do you want this economic model? Because you can play with the economy, you can simulate things, you can do what if scenarios, etc. Imagine we don't want this for Curaçao, but now we want to get it for the Guyana. For Guyana, the island we're looking at. So how do we do that? How do we do that? What data do we need to figure out? What data do we need to get? So now, I'm going to show you some of my sources from scratch in this 20 remaining minutes. I'm going to show you how I approach this. So imagine we need to become an expert for let's say within 1 month. Within 1 month, we need to build an economic model of Guyana, because we want to know what's going to happen. We want to simulate the economy, etc. What are the sources that we're looking at? Because for an economic model, you need 54 variables. So a lot of people will not be able to manage to do this, but this is my job. This is what I'm passionate about, and I know exactly what kind of data to look at. So I'm going to show you right now a couple of sources that are relevant, that once you get those sources, you can get the most important data for any country in the world. If you are going to look at another country like Aruba, if you are going to look at another country like Singapore, like China, whatever country, the same applies, because the same process is there. So now, I'm going to share my screen again and I show you what am I looking at, what kind of data. And I'm going to walk you through this data, and then you can get this data from Guyana, because I'm going to share it with you. If you have any questions, just type them below. So if you just joined, let me just show you my screen again. And now I'm going to my basic data. So what's the data? The first source of data is, if you look at it, look at them in the top. Bank of Guyana. So the central bank of the country is the first one that you want to take a look at. The Bank of Guyana, because the central bank will give you information, for instance, about the balance of payments, about the exports of that country, and about the imports of that country. Okay, so exports and imports are important, because then you know exactly, so that's on the top there, then you know exactly how that country transacts with the world. Because once you know the transactions between that country and the world, you know how they are doing. Most of the countries are dependent of other of the world. There is practically no country, except I think North Korea, which is totally isolated from the world, doesn't transact a lot with the world. So nowadays we are interconnected. So the bank of Guyana.org.gy, that's the central bank. So look at the central bank first, central bank, and then type central bank Guyana, central bank of what country you are looking at. Now what you're going to look at is the balance of payments. So I found the report here, and in that report, mostly it's the quarterly report, and in that report you will find so there's a question, what does the data tell us about Curacao? I will come up in that data later on, but let's look at Guyana. So the first thing, domestic exports and imports. So the balance of payments and the source is the Bank of the Bank of Guyana, or the central bank. So here you see already that Guyana is expected to have an oil boom next year, but what kind of products are they exporting right now? So from this state, we already see that they have a lot of, this is in millions US. You see that from the total, they have, like, the most important is, you have here something like bauxite, sugar, and they have like gold is important. They are exporting. You see, this is like, they are are basically commodities. They are exporting commodities. So what I expect is that the oil balance, because they found oil, and once they start receiving that oil will have an impact on this domestic exports sheet. It will have a huge impact. So that's the source of all their economic activities, and we should be seeing this in the quarterly reports next year. We should be seeing this. So mark my words, this will impact. You will see many flows in going here. It will probably surpass gold at a certain level, and then basically the oil, the barrels, and it will compete with gold, and maybe oil will become the first one, product that is going to be exported. So this is the first thing. Now, you see also the volume here. So here you can see the tons in the balance of payments. Not all the balance of payments have this, but the balance of payments, you see the tons of gold, etc. So it will show the barrels of oil, and then if you multiply that with the prices, you will go that. Now, just in between, somebody's asking, what does this tell us about Curacao in 2020? Now, Curacao is the opposite, because the revenues from the oil on Curacao from the refinery are like low. The revenues will continue to decrease. So on Curacao balance of payments, you will see a drop in the refining fee. So you will see a drop in the balance of payments, and tourism is one of the main exporting services from Curacao right now. But let's look at this. So you see the trade. This is a huge report, and this report of the Central Bank of Guyana, or it's called here the Bank of Guyana, that is a huge instrument. So in this report, we're looking at imports, exports. We're also looking at things like the public debt. Yes, the public debt, that's another indicator that you will get here. You will get indicators on, for instance, the government finances. Also, most of it, sometimes the Ministry of Finance will give you the government finances, the revenues and expenditures, but the central bank will also accumulate this. The situation, the monetary situation, that's another indicator that you will get from the central bank. So those indicators, those are relevant indicators. You see here the central bank current expenditures, also here from 2009 till 2018. You will get that, and the expenditures, the revenues and the expenditures you will get from the central bank. So there is also another thing, which is the monetary survey, and the monetary survey is also it will give you some information about the money. That's another indicator that you will get in the central banks on the website. So the reserves, that is also something you want to look at. The reserves is the foreign stock reserves. That is the number of foreign reserves that you get. That is important because every country needs to have at least 3 months of foreign reserves to cover their imports, and that is important. That's like the indicator. So that's a very indicator. You will have commercial, for instance, the interest rates, etc. And this is what I was looking at, the monetary survey. You see, the monetary survey will tell you about the composition of the money. So how is money, how much money is created, etc. Because as you know, you can create a lot of money. The deficit on the budget of the government can be financed by just creating money. So you want to look at the money, etc. Now, how does that impact we will come back at the end where I show you where I use all this information. So this is a lot of information. This is from the central bank. That's a main resource. Now, great. Another resource. Are you ready for another resource? Type below if you are ready. I'm going to show you another big resource that you need to get. So let me go there. Let me show you. It's the one. Let me show you another resource. Another resource is this. Okay, IMF. The IMF, International Monetary Fund. The second resource I always go is I go to the website of the IMF and I type in Article 4, and 4 you have to type Article 1V, Article 4, and in the Article 4 report you will want to get that Article 4 report of Guyana, because the latest Article 4, and this is the latest Article 4 in 2019, we are right now, it will give you all the data. And what is the Article 4? The Article 4 is basically the, most of the time, annual report that the IMF staff goes to that country, and then there is a full report after, I think, 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they get a full report. And the good thing about the report, so you see that report, one on the table above, I'm in that report for you. And the good thing about that report is it's a standard format. So I look at the report, and when I look at the report, I go to the tables, and the tables and the indicators give you the latest estimate of the main indicators for the economy. So this is, look at this, you already see more information, the real GDP of the economy. So from this report I can already see here, hey, Guyana has been growing, because it has been growing about 4.4% is the expectation for 2019, 4.1 in 2018, 2.1. So it is a growing economy, and it is probably expected to grow. Look at that one. IMF said 85.6%. Do you know what that means? Going from 4% to 85.6%. So that's an official figure of the IMF giving that. Now, for the people asking, for instance, for Curacao, we are in a contraction. We are in an economy going down, and some of people say that it's going to contract with 3% again next year. So while Guyana is growing, expected to grow a lot, and it's a huge peak, it's going to our economy of Curacao is expected to contract. So 85.6%, I mean, that is, I think, the highest in the world. Now, what is very different here, and I have some more questions, is the 3.5% in inflation. So how can the economy grow this much by oil, and that you don't see that in consumer price? You see? So my model would say, hey, this huge growth in the economy will have impact on inflation. I don't have a model yet of the Guyana economy, but my model would have probably estimated a higher growth in inflation, etc. So you see the whole government, again, the revenue. So IMF, in their report, they also got the tax revenue. They get all this information from the central bank, etc. The money they get, so the money we saw in the central bank, Bank of Guyana, should be the same information here. The current account balance, so the export minus the imports, that should be the same there. You see the nominal GDP, in Guyana dollars should also be the same. So here in these reports, this is the reports that we are looking at, and especially the tables. Okay, financial indicators and the tables. This is the whole monetary survey that we just saw, and here they are presented again. And you should be able to, broad money. You see here again the information. You should be seeing this indicator. Now they don't have what they don't have in the IMF report is more about the labor market. So there are indicators about the financial sector, indicator about the external sector, but the indicators about the population, the household, the unemployment, etc., that I have in my model, economic model, that indicator is not here. So the IMF, the source of the IMF focuses more on the financial indicators, but you see here already the government, etc. So we can use this information in the Guyana model. If we need to create the basic demo version of the Guyana model, then it is possible. And why would you create a Guyana model? Again, you would create it because then we can play with the economy, we can simulate the economy, we can see all the graphs, etc., etc. So that's the second source. Now I'm going to go to the third source. And the third source, are you ready for the third source? Do you know what the third source is? Tell me below if you have any questions. Now the third source is, look at it. Boom! That is a new source. And this source is basically the statistics bureau, the statistical office. Now if you go to the statistical office, you can get information about actually the labor market. You can get information about the unemployment, the employment, the inflation. You can get information about the other indicators. You can get information about the population. You can get information about the education. So the statistical department, that's actually here. Let me see the national accounts. So the Bureau of Statistics, the statisticsguyana.gov.gy, that is the third source and the source of the national account. So this is the economy. Look at how much data they have about the national economy. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the data about the national accounts. First, the national accounts, meaning you are the accounting and you are doing how is the total economy doing. Not only the financial thing, but how is the total money that the economy is earning. The national accounts. You are also looking at maybe the publication about the labor market. That is very important because remember we don't have that in the IMF report, Article 4 report. You are looking at information about the population, etc. And then look at this. One of the reports that are universal report, but you see that Guyana already has that, is the Sdg Reports. The Sdg report is the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is very important because I have found that Guyana is already reporting on this report. Now let's take a look at this report. I'm going to take a look at this report, and this report is voluntary national report. Now what is it? You have 17 sustainable development goals, and I can tell you most of the countries in the Caribbean, or some countries of the Caribbean, are not reporting at this level already. So I think Guyana is ahead of one of the countries in the Caribbean, at least, that is ahead with reporting about these indicators. So now let's just look at these indicators. So you have 17 development goals. And why would you want to have this kind of reports? This report is more according to the United Nations standard. So it's not only about the financial figures, it's not only about the debt, it's not only about the balance of payments that we got in at the central bank. It is not only the financial figures and the revenues figures and the expenditure figures that we got in the IMF, but these are basically United Nations metrics, performance, 17 sustainable development goals, and this is more telling you about the social sector, about the well-being of the people, different metrics. So this report, if you can get one of these reports, it will tell you a lot about the economy. Now, why do we want to know this? Because that growth that we saw in 2020 that is expected, how is it going to be shared? How is it going to be affected? How is that growth translate in renewable energy? How those kind of indicators are in this report. If you want to, maybe in the future, I'm going to dive into this kind of report, into these goals, because I'm also giving technical assistance regarding this report. But just let's look at quickly about some of the indicators. So you have Sustainable Development Goal number 8. That is inclusive. Promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full productive employment. So this is economic growth and employment. And look at this, you get some information, the same, we already saw this, 4%, the growth, there has been growth, and we have the GDP, real GDP growth. Let me see that one, real GDP, that's the level. This is the level, so that's in millions. With the light, the blue one is in the millions, and we have some indicators here. Again, exports, imports, and these things should be consistent with each other. And we have, for instance, how this growth is per capita. You know what the growth is, the number of. But you already see that the target 8 is number of fatal occupational injuries, male and female. So injuries, that's one indicator. Tourism share of GDP, that's one indicator. You see, Guyana has a low tourism share. Tourism, there is a lot of tourism potential. Goal number 9, Justin, build resilience infrastructure. Every country in the world has to report on this goal, has the same indicators, and has to report. So this is another scope, another way of viewing, another lens of viewing the country. And you see here, I'm just going to show you some indicators. Here they don't have any indicators, but in this report, sustainable development, reduce inequality among countries. Let me just give you some indicators to show you here. The indicator, the change in the public sector minimum wage. You see, there has been change, percentage, change in old age pension, 2%. So what is going to happen with that money, that oil money? Is this going to have an impact on this indicator? Are they going to translate that growth into maybe also 10% increase of the old age pension, or increase of the minimum wage, or increase of the public wage? Whatever, what is going to happen? So you see, there is one hand, there is something going in the economy, but it will have side effects in these indicators, because these indicators are about the people. Let's look at here the different regions. the different regions and the population. Will it mean, for instance, that people will migrate to Guyana? Probably it will migrate back to Guyana, and how will the population in those regions increase? So this is indicator. This is another indicator. So there are a lot of indicators, and one of the indicators, important one, is education. That's number 4. And you will see. Let me see. So let me see. Education number. Yes. No. Let me just give you some indicators here about. This is the indicator number 5. Achieve gender equality and empower women and girls. So this oil money can result into an imbalance of gender equality. You see? So what is this going to impact that? Gender Development Index, percentage of birth delivered by adolescent females. You see, I think this is very high. This is very high, you see? So this can decrease. So maybe part of their money is going to be into programs for girls. Estimated gross national income, female, male. You see, there is a huge, the national per capita is 10,000, and the female is lower. Okay? All these kinds of indicators, we only have them for 2017, but this will impact youth unemployment. So all these indicators. So this is another source, the global development, the sustainable development goals. So now let's look back. Let me show you back the economic models. This is the economic model of Curacao, and there are 54 variables that we are looking at. 54 variables. Once we have those 54 variables for 54 indicators, then you are actually able to create an economic model. So all the sources, I've only shown you 3 sources, the main 3 sources, but the goal of these sources, my goal is not only to gather data anywhere. My goal is to gather data consistently, and these are the 54 variables that we are looking at. And once we get these 54 variables for Guyana, for the economy of Guyana in this case, we can create a demo economic model. Now, the demo economic model, I build them only on request for Guyana, and if you are one of the persons at the Ministry of Finance of Guyana right now looking at this live show, or if you know somebody in the Ministry of Economic Affairs of Guyana, I'm very interested to contact you. You can contact me via this website, where we can discuss how we can create an economic model for Guyana, for the Guyana economy, because with that economic model you're going to simulate, you can simulate 27 packages of measures, of policy measures, playing with all these policy measures, and once you play with them, you will be able to see, once you change one of these things, you will be able to see the effects in the economy, and you will see the impact. And this model, out of these only 54 variables, this is what you need to focus on. Once you have these 54 variables, we have the intake, we have the information, we have gathered the sources, etc. Once we have the 54 variables, out of the 54 variables, you can create up to 250, 260 variables automatically, and that's the system that I have developed, I've been trained in, and that I can also train people in, and your policy advisors. And once we have that, we can look at this model and we can play with the model. We can create graphs of the physical sector, etc. All these variables will be able to do that. So I'm going to close now. I'm going to close this episode, and I'm going to go back and ask you. So the case study of Guyana. The economy is expected to boom next year. How to find data about this economy. I hope you now know how you can get the data. What are the 3 sources of data that you really need to get? That is the Statistical Bureau, that is the IMF, and that is the Central Bank of a country. And once you have that data, your goal is to get 54 variables and focus on these 54 variables. Once you have these 54 variables, you can actually create up to 260 variables in a framework that I have created. And that framework has worked for 10 islands economies already, and it's not only 10 island economies. My partner in the Netherlands has created many islands and also countries in Africa, in Europe, in the Caribbean, and has given information and has given training how to study the economy. So finally, Guyana. There is a lot of things going to happen in the economy of Guyana. I mean, there's a lot of things going to be happen simultaneously. Once that oil money comes in, it will trigger maybe migration. Migration will increase the population. Maybe increasing the population will have impact on the social sector. Will have impact on the infrastructure. The money coming in, who is going to get a job, who is not going to get a job, how are the income of the old age people, how is the minimum wage going to be impacted, how is the profitability of the companies in Guyana going to be impacted, how is the change in the composition of the exports, not only bauxite, not only gold, but a new revenue source, oil. How is it going to affect the economy, the external sector, the balance of payments, the flow of funds? How are the investments, because the investments are going to take place, foreign direct investment, how is that going to impact the balance of payments? That will create money. How is that money going to be spent? Once the money supply increases and people start to spend that, how will that impact the imports? And that also have an impact on the balance of payments. All this, how will it impact the fiscal sector? Because the tax revenues, the government is going to tax that. Now, you can play with the economy and you can see all these sectors and these interactions. You can have that in an economic model. And an economic model is basically a platform for communication between different factors, the different partners, different stakeholders. You have the labor unions, you have the employment organization, you have the government organization. They are all, you have the private investors, they are all looking at this economy, and they all have different stakes, but they have all different impact on the economy. They need to have a view of the total economy, where it is going. And my perspective, my experience is that the economic growth or economic speed up, it will generate income, and it will have impact on the social sectors. What is possible? What can you invest in education? What can you invest in the other sectors of the economy? What can you invest in tourism? Now, all these policy scenarios are interesting, and you can you can gather all that information, and you can simulate that, you can discuss that based on the facts. That's basically the value of an economic model, where you can analyze the economy. You can see how things are interrelated. It is not the tool, like, hey, we are building this tool for ourselves. No, we are building these tools to understand the economy better, to understand the patterns. Now that's my expertise, and I'm willing to invest in this, and to work with the Ministry of Finance or any ministry in Guyana to do this. Now, in finalizing this, I have shown you how I go and gather the data from any economy, in this case Guyana. If you want to be part of my community, then what I want you to do is click on the chat box on Facebook, if you are on Facebook, and then a chat box will open, and Anna, my chatbot assistant, will onboard you on my community for free. And this can happen anything. You can do it. She works 24 hours because she's a digital assistant, and she will ask you some questions so that we know how we can serve you. And after you have been onboarded, it only takes I think 3 minutes. After you are onboarded, whatever questions you have, you can chat and you can ask that privately to me, and then I will look at it once a week, where we can serve you. So that's the question. If you have any questions regarding any economic issues, etc., and especially Guyana, if you want to dive deeper into this economy, if you want to compare this economy, if you want to know how to be trained in the economics of Guyana, if you want to be trained in how to create an economic model of Guyana, if you want to discuss the economy of Guyana based on facts and figures and not rumors, then contact me, because that's my specialty. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you found this valuable, and thank you, and see you next week. And please share this episode. If you want to share this episode on Facebook, please, I will be very, very thankful for you. If you are looking at this on YouTube, just subscribe, and you will get the other episodes also next time, every time I go online. So that was Guyana. Very interesting. I want to learn more about Guyana, don't you? I really, really want to learn more about Guyana. See you next time. Bye.